Alright guys, in this video we're going to take a look at the 138T standing seam and compare it to the 238T standing seam. Stick around and we'll show you what it's all about. Alright, my name's Aaron, we're here in our shop, and in this video I've got a sample of the 138T and the 238T, and on our YouTube channel we've got a bunch of different installs of this type of metal, and some of them say 138T and some of them say 238T, and it's not always clear why we use the 238T or why we use the 138T for a particular job. So the point of this video is to kind of compare and contrast the two panels, because even though they're very similar and they have a lot of things in common, there are some big differences when it comes to the application of these metals, and that's what we're going to talk about in this video. Alright guys, so what is the 138 and the 238T? Well, it's a symmetrical style standing seam. So here's the 138T, and you can see that there's no male and female leg. They're symmetrical, which means that they're going to butt into each other, the next panel, and they're going to get covered. The seams are going to be made with the seam cap. And to learn more about that, I've got other videos that are just particular to this panel, but that's the idea of the symmetrical panel, is that they are individualized and not male and female overlap like a traditional standing seam. So the 138T and the 238T share that in common. Now, if I hold these pieces of metal up, they look like they're identical, and they kind of are identical in the sense that the same shape and the same form or profile is being used. But the difference between the 138T and the 238T is going to be the height of the leg and the width of the panel. So for a 238T, it's going to be a 2 3/8 tall leg, and for the 138T, as you can probably guess, it's going to be an 1 3/8 tall leg. So when we talk about what these panels have in common, they're both 24 gauge, they're both standing seams, so they're clip system, hidden fasteners, no exposed screws. They both use a seam cap, they're both mechanically seamed. We roll form both of these panels on the job site, so both of these profiles are full length. So there's a lot of similarities, and they install pretty much the same way with the same style clip. It's just that the 238T clip is a little bit taller. So they're very similar, but the application is different, and that's what we're going to talk about next. All right, so for the application of these different panels, they're even though they're very similar, they're in totally different uses. So for example, with the 138T, that panel is going to be, for us, we're going to install that on residential and light commercial jobs, so houses and smaller buildings, and it's most of the time, or almost all the time, it's going to be over a solid deck. So a solid plywood deck with high temperature ice and water, that's where the 138T is going to be installed, residential, light commercial. Whereas our 238T also can be installed over a solid deck, but the 238T can also span over open framing. But primarily the 238T is going to be used for recovers. So we're going to do our metal over metal recovers with the 238T. Now we also use the size of the 238T on some of our bigger jobs. So if the building or structure is a bigger structure and it is going to look better with a taller profile or a taller leg, then we'll use that. So some of the larger churches that we've roofed with standing seam, we use the 238T even though it's a solid deck. So the 238T can be solid deck or open purlins, whereas the 138T is just going to be pretty much residential and light commercial. And then the 238T is going to be the panel that we're going to use to recover either steel buildings or run over open purling on new construction. Alright guys, so you can see the panels are very similar looking, but the application is different. But just on another side note of one more important thing that both of these panels share, is that they both can do the transverse panel detail, which is our flashing detail for this type of symmetrical or T-style roofing around skylights, chimneys, and HVAC. And if you haven't seen our video on skylight flashing with the 138T, I recommend that you check that out. The 238T can also do that same flashing detail. So either of the situations that we talked about, light commercial or residential or industrial metal roof recovers or new construction open purling steel buildings, the symmetrical panel, there's a symmetrical panel for your job. Thanks for watching guys, we'll see you on the next one.